blue and white. And there's a chance for Niall Quinn, and White scores! David White, last season's top scorer.
And Matchday! That's what champions do.
Zinaldo again, and Sibierski, and Manchester City are rampant.
And now Aguero surely had to come eventually, and when it came, it was probably going to be.
Last season's top scorer.
And Matchday! That's what champions do.
Zinaldo again, and Sibierski, and Manchester City are rampant.
And now Aguero surely had to come eventually, and when it came, it was probably going to be him.
It's a winning start for Manchester City, courtesy of a stellar second-half performance and a Raheem Sterling hat-trick.
What will be expected of him? That is the hot seat that he now occupies.
Into the Guardiola era, the manager that they've chosen to lead them forward.
Adebayor! Less than 3 minutes into his debut, Emmanuel Adebayor makes his mark.
Sergio Aguero, lovely play. Aguero, a debut goal. Aguero! It gets even better on his debut.
Announcing Erling Haaland! There goes Haaland, he's on his way again, he's hungry, he's scored, he always does, he always will.
Sibierski, Fowler. Oh! Robbie Fowler makes his mark. Anuaha, who only came on in the second half. A strong run from him. Is it going to lead all the way? Giovanni! It does! It's a rousing finale that guarantees Sven-Göran Eriksson a victory in his first match in charge of Manchester City.
Yaya Toure. Oh! Textbook. Toure just got behind Morrison, looking for Bonnie. Back for Toure, beautifully worked. Super goal. That one undoubtedly belongs to Yaya Toure. Looking again towards the near post. He loves that kind of run. He's made that kind of run count. And that means a great deal to him personally, to reassert himself.
Bernardo Silva crashes it in. Something with true conviction by the little Portuguese.
Puts in a second cross, it's deep. Rodri pulls away, and City do score. Haaland's first touch of the new Premier League season. Walker crossing position, on it goes to Alvarez near the penalty spot. Haaland hits the back of the net. Delivers. There's a bit of a tangle, and Ake almost gets there, and Rodri does. Blues have begun the defence of their Premier League crown in style. Oscar Bob comes inside and scores brilliantly. Haaland on a hat-trick and scores!
Welcome to Matchday Live. Manchester City kick off the Premier League here in London for the game against Chelsea. Erling Haaland could make his 100th appearance at Manchester City, and today we're going to be following fans. We're going to be getting live reaction to things like the team news, what the think's going to happen throughout the season. Stick with us, but for now we're going to head to the studio where Kel is with the Manchester City legend Richard Dunn and a man making his Matchday Live debut.
Thank you, FG, and thank you, Manchester City fans around the world. Welcome back to Matchday Live. My name is Kel Spellman, and it is an absolute pleasure to join you as Manchester City embark on going for an unprecedented 5 Premier League title crowns in a row. But as we all know, a long season ahead, and we'll be with you every step of the way. Now, we saw some debuts there at the start of the show. Will Savinho be making his debut today? We'll find out very shortly. But one man making his Matchday Live studio debut is none other than Mr. Clive Allen. Good afternoon, sir. Welcome to Matchday Live. How are you?
Good afternoon. I'm feeling great, excited to start a new season, and it's a real pleasure to be here.
It's a real pleasure to have you here. We can't wait to dig into your career a little bit later on in the show. Richard Dunn, great to have you back with us as well. Before we come to you, sir, we're going to get team news straight away. This is our starting 11, the first of the Premier League season, and we're looking like this. In goal, Ederson is between the sticks. Then we have a back four consisting of Mr. Kyle Walker, Ruben Diaz, Manuel Akanji and Gvardiol. In the middle of the pitch, Mateo Kovacic, Kevin De Bruyne captains the side alongside Bernardo Silva. And then a forward three of Doku, and he is making his debut. Savinho is on the other side and making his 100th appearance in a Manchester City shirt. Our top goal scorer, Mr. Erling Haaland. Let's begin, Richard, with what I was very excited to see, a debut for Savinho in the Premier League.
Yeah, it's brilliant. There's not been many signings throughout the summer, so it's great to see a new one coming in. He had a great season last year in Spain, and there's huge excitement about him. I think there's a little cameo in the Community Shield last week certainly excited a few people, and he had something different. And what City have on the wings there today is very frightening, I think, for Chelsea's defence, whoever that may be. But yeah, really looking forward to seeing him.
Absolutely. Just speaking of defence there as well, Rico Lewis, is starting the bench, and then we have Kyle Walker on the bench. So Rico Lewis right back, Gvardiol left back, Akanji and Diaz in the middle. It's interesting going for them two wingers, Clive, because we've spoke about the one-on-one power that both those players have. So do you think that's something City will be looking to use and exploit in the Chelsea defence today? Absolutely.
I think obviously possession-based game as it always is, but then you need those moments where individuals one-on-one open up a defence, make something happen, and certainly with the two wide players today, there's the potential there for ammunition for Erling Haaland, which any centre forward wants, and that creativity that you need. Absolutely. Look into the middle of the pitch. You know, one name that we're so used to always seeing there, of course, a stalwart in Rodri. Pep spoke about, though, in his pre-match conference that he's literally only just come back. I don't think he's had one training session, so there's no chance he was going to start. How do you think Kovacic will fare today in that holding role, Richard?
I think he'll be fine. He's a hugely experienced player. He's won everything with the clubs that he's played at. He's obviously an ex-Chelsea player as well, and every time he plays, he fits in perfectly. He's more than capable of controlling the game in his own right, and every team's going to miss Rodri and a player of that quality, but to have an understudy, if you could call him that, in Kovacic, it just shows the strength of the squad. Yeah. There's been so many players that are late returning after the Euros, and it's been difficult to get them all together. But then, along with Kovacic, you just look at the whole starting 11, and it's just full of experience and full of real quality. Which I guess is going to be so important, especially where, as we know, Enzo Maresca, the Chelsea coach, he likes that possession-based football, as do City, and Kovacic arguably is one of the best. Is that going to be one of the key battlegrounds, I guess? Who has the most position will kind of define who might come out on top today, Clive? Absolutely. I think, you know, the way the two teams will set up, the way Maresca will want his team to play with that possession-based game, that midfield area is going to be vital. Kovacic, with his experience, I think can certainly contain in that holding midfield disciplined performance, one in which we see Rodri produce week in, week out, and obviously Pep will confide in him, and I think Kovacic will cope with that comfortably. Because as well, it's a good little challenge, isn't it? Because as we know, he played so many minutes, the most of any Manchester City player last year, Rodri, and we know how key he was to us winning the Premier League again, how key he was for Spain in the Euros. It feels like now, Chief, Kovacic can kind of cement that almost understudy role that we don't need to worry when Rodri does need to rest or to kind of compete on all four fronts. I just think with the strength in depth of the squad, you have to have versatility, players that can play in different roles when called upon, whether it be through injury or whether it be through lack of form. The manager has those options, and he certainly does in every position. But with his current City squad,
there's so many options for the manager, which is so important.
Really is. And we just saw our big man up front arriving there at Stamford Bridge. Of course, it's a 4:30 kickoff this afternoon. Erling Haaland, 100 appearances in the City shirt. I mean, Richard, I'm sure you remember the game as well, where you made those 100 appearances. Is it a nice little moment as a player to reach that first century of appearances for any club you play in?
It is, yeah. And like, obviously for City players now, it comes so quickly because there's 60-odd games a season for them. So it doesn't seem like 2 minutes since he started at City. He started scoring goals, and he's not going to be far off 100 goals probably quite soon, you know. So he's been brilliant since he's come in. He's always looked fresh. He's always wanting to play. He's always available for games, and he's
he always wants to score, which is a terrible habit to have. You know, I think since arriving, he came with his unbelievable reputation as a goal scorer, leader of the line. We were talking earlier about, you talk to any club in the Premier League, the majority of them are asking the question, we need a number 9, we need a centre forward. City have the best, there's absolutely no doubt about that. I think since he arrived, he's been consistent with his performances, but his goal scoring has been absolutely phenomenal.
It's Friday. I've got here as well. So he marks his 100th game, but in the 99 games he's played so far, 90 goals, 9 of them being hat-tricks, which is just frightening. I wonder, Clive, having maybe more 2 traditional wingers, you know, that like to play on the right-hand side, you know, he said, I think Savinho loves to play on the left, Doku on the right. Can that help Haaland and maybe bring, I don't know, another element to his game that we've not seen? Because usually we like to play with wingers who invert and come inside. So how could it benefit Haaland having 2 wingers that are playing on the side they want to play at?
Well, I just think when you know that you have 2 players on either side, left and right, who are right-footed or left-footed, the deliveries can come in very quickly rather than coming back. And those deliveries coming in from inverted wingers will always be going in towards the goal, difficult to chase in on, whereas deliveries coming back to you are always much easier to attack. And I think Erling Haaland will, you know, he'll be relishing that opportunity with good deliveries from either side. We know how good he is in the air. He will obviously occupy that 6-yard box when crosses come in. So for me, as a striker, you're going to keep getting in there, and he certainly will. Yeah,
and we know his timing is arguably one of the best in the league. For the Chelsea defenders then, Richard, is that so hard to defend it when the crosses are coming in quick, and as Clive says, they're coming the other way, not maybe the way we're used to seeing, where it's kind of rounding towards the back post?
Yeah, I think as well, when they're coming in quick, as a defender, you're generally running back towards your own goal, whereas the other way, you're facing away, so you've got a chance of getting them. So it is difficult, and it's just about, like Clive says, it's about the timing of the ball, the timing of the run, knowing where it is, where it's going to land and stuff like that. And I think with the wingers that we've got, because they're quite tricky and they do unbelievable stuff at times, sometimes they can delay a little bit, and it'd be interesting to see if Pep said, right, when you get into this certain position, put it in, because you've got the best number 9 in the world wanting to score goals, wanting to attack. He doesn't want to get involved in the build-up. No. He wants to get at the end of everything, so he'll be demanding balls into the box.
So exciting. I mean, we're only 10 minutes into the show and I already cannot wait for the game in hand. Right, let's take a pause here. As we saw at the start of the show, FG is down in London, around Stamford Bridge, and I believe he is now with Michael Brown, and we can get their thoughts on our first starting 11 of this year's Premier League season.
Yes, thank you very much. Welcome to Stamford Bridge. It is with great pleasure to say it's our first Premier League game of the season. The sun is shining and Michael Brown is joining me pitchside. We've just seen the Manchester City lineup. And what are your initial thoughts?
It was always going to be interesting, wasn't it, when all the players are coming back. There were some late additions to the squad, a couple of injuries here and there, players only training 3 or 4 days, and what type of team was Pep Guardiola being allowed to sort of put out? That's not dangerous. That gives everybody a little bit of balance and a little bit of time, but it's an exciting team choice. It's a brilliant stadium here. The pitch looks fantastic. We're back again, aren't we, in the Premier League? That's what we all love, the Premier League, week in, week out. And I'm really looking forward to Savinho is the one. He caught my eye a little bit in the Community Shield. Obviously, there's always a new addition to Manchester City. He's the one who'll probably excite the supporters.
Yeah, absolutely, really exciting actually, Savinho and Doku, and then our captain today, Kevin De Bruyne, is probably licking his lips at that thought of playing them through balls in behind to them. How important is the pace of the front three, and how much do you think Kevin's going to enjoy that?
Well, it's always important, isn't it? As the sprinklers come on, are we safe? We'll soon see. We often get wet when we're pitch side, but I've just seen Kevin De Bruyne in the tunnel. He seemed up for it. He'd be ready to come here and set the tone. As you say, get on that half turn, look to try and get passes away. How will Chelsea set up? Well, we'll be able to get Erling Haaland over the top. get him to hold it up, little balls from De Bruyne, little crosses into key areas, and then an understanding with these wide players, when is the right time, when is the overload to get a 1v1. So that's so important. Switch your play, then give the space for the winger to go and get the 1v1, get the crosses across.
I'm pretty sure everybody watching Matchday Live and City fans around the world will be super excited about that, maybe rolling it back. So when we had a particular front three that everyone talks about, Aguero, Sané and Sterling, let's move on to then. Rodri's not in the squad. We knew about that when Pep mentioned it. It looks like Kovacic and Bernardo might sit in the middle. I mean, we're in very, very safe hands there, aren't we?
Very much so. I think Kovacic as well, I think he knows this place very, very well. He's got an understanding, an aura now. He understands everything what's needed from him. So he realises that when there's no Rodri, he has to sit, he has to be a little bit more disciplined. He takes the ball in key areas. He has to be careful with that the counter-attack's not on. Bernardo, infectious. Anywhere that he's asked to play, he's got that energy, he's got that belief. And we might see a Kanji, Rico Lewis also try to step into that midfield area just to help the role.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to see our English players back on the bench. Jack Grealish as well is on the bench, which is fantastic for us to see. Been brilliant seeing you, Brownie. We're going to see a lot of you throughout the show. I'm going to let you enjoy the sun before the sprinklers get us, and we're going to head back to the studio where Kelly's there.
Thanks, FG. Was kind of hoping you might have stayed a bit longer to see if they did get a bit wet, but I know you might be going to catch up with some Manchester City fans, so you get there, FG, and we'll catch up with you in a little bit. Right, we've had our City starting 11. Let me bring you then how Chelsea are lining up today. Of course, the game is at Stamford Bridge, and we do know their coach as well, Enzo Maresca. He had 2 spells here at City, one being an assistant to Pep. Well, this is the team that he's chosen. It's got Sanchez in goal. Then we have Cucurella, Collywell, Fernandez, Jackson, Nkunku, Palmer, Caicedo, Gusto, Fofana, and a name that will be familiar with a few City fans as well, Romeo Lavia. There was something quite interesting before we just quickly look at the team I've got here. They're in a starting 11 for Chelsea's pre-season. 7 Manchester City Academy graduates were in their starting 11. That included as well, of course, Tosin, who we remember came through the ranks here. Lavia, obviously, as well. Cole Palmer, unbelievable season. New contract for him. We're almost become a bit of a feeder club for Chelsea in a way, Richard.
It is incredible what the Academy does in terms of producing players, and sometimes they go on and they have careers in lower level, but to get 7 at a top club like Chelsea is a really impressive thing. And that Chelsea side that you just named there, it looks quite strong. We know there's been a lot of chaos at the club. Yeah. From the outside, it looks that way anyway. Over the summer, they've got a ridiculous amount of players, but the 11 that they've put out on the pitch today looks familiar, something similar to what they would have played last year, and they look strong, certainly in that central midfield with 3 almost defensive midfielders. Maybe Fernandez will be the one who will break out, but they do look a strong unit, and the 2 fullbacks as well. It'll be a really interesting battle on the wings with them because they're both really quick. Cucurella had an amazing Euros, and Gusto's a flyer, so it'll be a real good test today. And it was a great match last year, so hopefully it's something similar.
Indeed, there were lots of goals. Indeed, I mean, you could say as well, even going off the pre-season game, defensive frailties maybe on both sides. But we earmarked, even from the City starting 11, the midfield battle being key. And I just looked there, and even just Caicedo and Romeo Lavia, who I loved when he was at Southampton. That feels a very, very solid midfield for Chelsea as well. A key battleground there.
Yeah, that looks to be an area that Maresca's. Obviously, there's a lot of attention there in terms of trying to control the game. He likes the team with possession football. I think there's maybe an opportunity for Chelsea just to outnumber. So it will be interesting whether it is Lewis comes in to make that extra body in midfield just to make sure that City are very solid against this Chelsea side. There's been lots of goals scored, 4 all last season. Obviously, the pre-season fixture where there was lots of goals. Where those back fours will line up, whether they're deep, because of the pace on both front lines, you have to say. And Nkunku is a very interesting one for me. Obviously, missed a lot of last season with injury. What sort of effect is he going to have on Chelsea's front line?
Yes. I guess as well then for Cole Palmer as well, to kind of, you've added in that extra ingredient in Nkunku. It feels like Palmer, though, could almost kick on even more, which is frightening given the season he had last year, signed a new contract. He is arguably probably their biggest danger man when you look at that starting 11, Richard.
Yeah, on his form of last season, and he's the one probably English player from the Euros who we all felt done really well when he came into the games. And it's always more difficult when when people know what your game is, they understand how you play. So this second season, the second full season, really, people will know him a little bit better, and it'll be a little bit more difficult. But he certainly shows no signs of slowing up in what he's doing. And if City can control him, then I think they can control the Chelsea team. But it's easier said than done, I suppose, at times. He's a very talented player.
He is as well. I mean, technically as well, so gifted. But I guess that's kind of where the standards are at. And even though it is a new coach, we do look at that Chelsea 11 there and say that they can cause us problems. Who else do you think we should be earmarking as a threat, do you reckon, Clive, as well?
Well, I think obviously Nkunku with his pace, because if Cole Palmer gets any sort of space, you know he can thread balls, he can open up defences. He has a great confidence. He signed a new contract, great confidence off the back of last season.
Yeah.
The number of goals he scored, and obviously the summer he had with England. So I think that combination is the one that City have to be really aware of to stop that. I think they will try to control that midfield area with a lot of possession, but as long as that possession doesn't break lines and get the ball, stopping the ball going into Cole Palmer is going to be, I think, really vital.
And I guess as well, actually, young Rico Lewis is at right back, so it's going to be a big test for him today. Obviously, we're so used to having Walker there with his pace, but we know that Rico loves to turn up for any battle. He takes everything in his stride, but a big test for him as well, I guess, today as well, especially against, as we say, the attacking prowess of Chelsea.
Yeah, I think that what he's shown is that he's capable, and the manager obviously knows that. He puts a lot of trust in him, and it's not just one position. He's so versatile, can go and make up the extra number in midfield, will play from right back, will get forward in a wider position, and let your winger go inside. So I think he will relish the opportunity of starting this Premier League campaign.
Just on Chelsea's team as well, we mentioned, of course, we know the squad size, but Pep was speaking about how we need to give Enzo time, which he really hopes he does. Obviously, they've got a good relationship. Is that something probably Chelsea fans will have to also maybe think, right, we need a bit of patience because it is a completely new system and way of playing that Enzo is trying to implement?
You don't get time at Chelsea.
No, that's the thing. There is no patience. As patient as the fans want to be, the owners aren't, and that's the biggest problem. I think when you want to play possession-based football, you need to have the players to do it. And we've seen a couple of times in the pre-season game against City where they conceded soft goals because of overplaying and losing the ball in their own penalty area. And I think there's going to have to be an element of pragmatism at times from Chelsea that, look, we're in a bit of a sticky situation, we're going to have to turn them or do something different, because if they keep giving away soft goals, the fans will turn very quickly against them. So that's very important. And I think for Maresca, in terms of having a good season, today is huge for him. His first game at Stamford Bridge against the champions. Can you get a result? Can you make an impact in the league? If it goes against them, people will already be having their doubts, because not necessarily because of him, just because of the uncertainty throughout the whole club.
Yes.
Nobody really knows who's leading it, who's signing the players, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I think results-wise today is huge for him.
It's going to be massive.
He needs to be given time, but he's been given 50-odd players, first-team players. How do you work with that number? I think it's very difficult for any coach. They would find that very difficult. I think initially, in today's game, for me, it's where that Chelsea back four line up. If they're deep and they try to play out, there's no doubt that City will go and press, and as they did in pre-season, break the play up in the final third, and you have to be really ruthless then. If Chelsea try to push up, then it's obviously the opportunity for City to put the ball in behind and pace from both sides and Erling Haaland. So there's a real dilemma there, I think, for Maresca in the way that he sets his defensive system up today.
Yeah, absolutely. It'd be interesting to see how that does go. Enzo spoke about as well how Pep's style of play is always changing, and we've watched that over these 8 years, you know, from having, you know, Sterling and Sane, from, you know, being rapid down the wings, then all of a sudden it's a Bernardo and Phil or Jack, a bit more control. Can you see the style maybe changing again? We kind of alluded to it at the start of the show, where we've got two traditional wingers now. Do we think again we're going to see an evolution of this Pep City team, or more of what we saw last season?
I think it always evolves, whether it's big changes or small changes. I think it will always evolve. It's not necessarily massively important to sign new players all the time. Certainly when a manager is tweaking with little ideas, and every coach, from grassroots coaches up to first team coaches, they all follow Pep.
Yeah.
They all want to see what he's doing. So if he stands still, someone eventually will overtake him. So the fact that he keeps changes is massively important. And it's not just this is how we're going to play this season. This is how we're going to play today. next week we're going to play differently, next week we're going to play differently, and having the squad strength and depth that they've got gives them the opportunities to mix and match whatever opposition they've got.
It's finding a way to win. I think that's what it is. And if you play the same way and all of a sudden you find it difficult to get results, to have that momentum that you want throughout the season, you have to change.
Yes.
So you change before it's forced upon you, I think.
Yes, yeah.
You know, there's a lot of pace on the flanks for City today. Erling Haaland can go in behind. If Chelsea squeeze up, you can see little balls going in behind that defence to turn them around, rather than 2 or 3 extra passes in that midfield area, which is going to be very congested. It's going to be fascinating to see how it unfolds.
It really is. I guess as well, it was quite nice where we've maybe got those 2 extra wingers. We saw it anyway, and obviously we were crying out for it in the Euros, but we definitely know now Foden's going to be more central as well. And feel like Bernardo as well will be playing in there as well. I think that gives us a slightly different element to maybe what we've seen in previous seasons as well, having them in the middle, Richard.
Yeah, the quality of those players is you can put them anywhere on the pitch and they make an impact on the team. And I think, like Clive says, you can have 2 fast wingers today because Chelsea play high. Like if Chelsea play deep, then you put on 2 wingers who want to come inside and want to control the ball a little bit more. So the options that he has is amazing. And Phil has been crying out for a few years to get into that central position. And last year he just grabbed it with both hands. He was outstanding. I think he was the player of the year.
Yeah, player of the year,
and rightly so. And yeah, you just expect him just to keep growing. I think everybody around Manchester has sort of known about him since a young age and followed his progress, just go on, make the next step, make the next step. And the next step for him is to become one of the best players in the world.
Yeah.
If he's not already, but he needs to really get into that bracket, and he has the quality to do it, and the performances last year back that up.
They really, really do. And I guess as well for the opposition managers as well, that's arguably why we are so hard to beat, is because it is so ever-changing, and that it's quite an obvious thing to say, but you can never pinpoint how a City going to play. Even when you look at the starting 11, they're so interchangeable. It must be an opposition manager's nightmare to think, how are we going to line up here?
Yeah, I think you do your preparation in terms of when you have possession of the ball and the way that you want to play, but then you know against the opposition how you're going to stop the threats. And there are so many threats in so many different areas in the way that they play, whether it be Erling's physicality, for an example, for the centre-halves, whether it's the pace of the wingers, whether it's the quality of De Bruyne. If you don't get close to him, he opens you up with a pass. So there's so many things to try to stop if you're an opposition manager.
As indeed. Well, Chelsea will be giving that a good go today. It's a 4:30 kickoff at Stamford Bridge. Now, FG is in and around Stamford Bridge. He's been catching up with some Manchester City fans, getting their experience as they build up to the game. And I think we can hear from some now and see what they make of our first starting 11 of the Premier League season.
So we've just seen the Manchester City team news for today. What do you make of that lineup?
I think it's a good lineup, to be fair. I'm excited to see Doku and Savinho both on the wings. Both got pace, so and Haaland in the middle. So hopefully get some good crosses in, and we'll see how it goes.
No, I like the lineup. Yeah, I'm pretty excited to see Savinho today. Good lineup. Not our strongest, but pretty excited.
I think throughout the season it could be one of our stronger lineups. I can see Savinho starting quite a bit this season because I feel like we're going to let go of Jack. I don't like to admit it, but it's what I think is going to happen this season. I feel like January could be going, so I'm excited to see Savinho.
Well, obviously we don't have Rodri, which is a big miss, but I think we'll still get it done. They don't have the depth, Chelsea, so yeah.
You know what, Savinho and Doku, I think it's very explosive. I think both of them could provide a lot on the wings. Sounds weird, but we've not really had that explosiveness kind of on the wings the last few seasons since Sané, Sterling, etc. And I think they could do very well. I think Savio could contribute or score, and I think City are going to win 3-1. That's what I'm saying.
And which player are you most excited to see throughout the season?
Perhaps Rico Lewis, I think he fucking played unreal last season, so we'll hopefully he carries that on this season as well.
Probably Savinho, to be fair. Not seen much from him, and from what I saw in the Charity Shield, he's pretty decent, so yeah, pretty excited to see him.
It's got to be Savio, doesn't it? I mean, against United, he looked promising. He's Brazilian, isn't he? So it's going to be exciting, isn't he?
Savio, I can say it 8 times. Savio, he's a new signing. He's probably our only major signing of the window, and I think he's going to do really well. So yeah, I want to say him as much as possible, but Savio is what I think today could make us see. That's what I want to say. Savio.
Thank you so much, mate. You're close, just missing the end there. Savinho is how we pronounce our new boy sign. Of course, brought him over from, well, amazing season in La Liga, and now he lines up for us today. Quite surprising as well that he's been thrown in straight away, but just goes to show how much Pep trusts in him. Right, wanted to ask the gents in the studio today about what success looks like for Manchester City this year, because Pep spoke about kind of the first and foremost successful thing that City need to do is secure top 4, and he says that is a successful season. But beyond that, what do you think it looks like, Richard?
I'd imagine to win the 5th title in a row. That's what it is. I mean, they've set the standards for themselves now, which is obviously very difficult to maintain all the time. And I hear him speaking about maybe the 5th title isn't going to excite the players, so how do you keep them focused and keep them entertained? And he was talking about, well, we need to beat Chelsea. We need to get better as players individually and all that stuff. So that's the challenge. And I think the way that he drives them, the way that he controls the squad and keeps players happy. The Champions League was a disappointment last year in terms of the way that we went out, when probably on another night you could have scored 4 or 5 against Real Madrid. So he'll be looking to try and win that back. And City will go close in every tournament. And I'd expect if they didn't, they'd be very disappointed with it. And I think for success this year, they'd be looking to certainly win 1, if not 2, of the big trophies.
Absolutely. And I guess as well, Pep was keen to point out as well, I think he referenced the basketball final in the Olympics. I think it was between Serbia and the United States, I believe. But he's saying just because Serbia lost doesn't mean that they're not winners. And it's just the matter of fact of, as long as you go out there, do your best and apply the game you want to apply. That's all you can ask for. Anything else is a bonus. That's, I guess, quite key to remember, because we can get caught up in going, well, if we don't get a trophy, it's a failure, and that's not quite the case.
No, it isn't, because I think as a football club under Pep, they've set such high standards. They've been so successful. You come into a season, obviously, having won the Premiership 4 times, which is absolutely incredible. To do it a 5th, as Richard said, would be an unbelievable achievement. Yes, I'm sure there was disappointment in terms of the Champions League, and Pep would love to win the Champions League. I think if they win those 2 this season, it will be once again a most memorable season, an incredible achievement.
I mean, if that does happen, I don't know what I'll do with myself, to be honest with you. At that point, I'll just might as well retire there and then. Right, now we can go over to 2 other Manchester City legends in the form of Nader Manua and Mr. Paul Dickoff. They're not here in the studio. They're also not at Stamford Bridge. They're actually on our trophy tour. As you'll know, each season we send our trophies around the world, and Paul and Nader have brought them to China, and we can hear how they've been getting on this trip.
Do you know, I would love to say yes, but I'm not going to lie to you, because the last 3 years previous to last weekend, we've lost the Community Shield and we've gone on to win the league at the same time. What it has done, the likes of Rico Lewis, young Nico O'Reilly, James McAtee, it's gave them the belief that they can play against their rivals at Wembley in their competitive debuts. And win a trophy as well. So the confidence the younger players will take for that into the season is going to be great for them. Will it have a bearing on the rest of the season? I don't know, because if we'd lost last week, I would still expect Manchester City to go on and win.
I think being able to win that game with the amount of people that weren't fully available or fully fit, I think it was very impressive against the Manchester United side, who were probably further along in their development, so also the progression this season. So I think it was a marker to the City players, not necessarily to the rest of the league, but I think Pep knows that his squad will get better. But to be able to perform like that without that much pre-season for some of them, I think they are in a good place.
I would love a similar result, Erling Haaland hat-trick, 4-2, but it's going to be a completely different game. The game in pre-season, both teams made a lot of changes. They were getting up to speed with their match fitness, their general fitness as well. So be completely different at Stamford Bridge, first game of the season. The crowd will be up for it. The Chelsea players will be up for it, but the experience and the quality Manchester City have got, they know how to handle that.
I would love a similar result. I think, was it 4-2 or something like that with a Haaland hat-trick? But I think it'll be different, because now Chelsea, they're playing at home and everybody wants to start the season well. So I wouldn't necessarily expect a similar result, but I think a step up in performance from both. But with the players that City have got coming back in now, again, I can't help but feel that they're going to be the team to win today. My personal highlight, firstly, it's nice to travel around with Paul Dickoff to see how much of a hero he is everywhere. Not just on the continent of Europe, but in Asia as well. And he's been here, I think, 10 times, probably more. So I think travelling around with him and seeing some of the City fans and how much they love Man City. You know, it's not just football, they love Man City and they're so passionate about the club's history. And as we get given photos and stuff to sign, the photo could be of Paul when he was scoring at Wembley, was it 25 years ago? Or it could be someone from today who, you know, these are probably the best players in the world and probably the best club in the world at this time. So I think their understanding of the club's history, but then also they're excited about the future. Getting a chance to see that has been special.
As always, it's going to visit the fans. You know, we've been here a short time already, but we've been to 3 different cities, and you know, I touched it in the very start of this interview. Every time I come here, whatever city we go to, it blows your mind, and the passion that they've got for City, and the support they've got for City, but the knowledge of the club as well. You know, not just the here and now, the history of the club, and to see them all with the Man City shirts on, it's growing and growing and growing and getting bigger and bigger all the time. So that's always the highlight wherever I go.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Paul. Thank you, Nadim, as well. So great to hear they're having a lovely time over there. And I believe as well, you're watching the game with over 600 official supporter club fans at a very special screening event that's happening in China. So to all of you watching, hello, enjoy. Let's hope it's the result that we all want. And thanks again to Paul and Nadim. Clive, it's interesting, isn't it? I guess from when you played for City, you know, back at Main Road, I still find it mad, but it must be so funny then to see we've got a Premier League trophy and thousands, tens of thousands of fans over in China is quite amazing, really, isn't it?
It's quite incredible how obviously the Premier League has grown. It's a global product now, and City are at the forefront of that. And it's an incredible story in terms of being the champions, having won the Premier League 4 times in the last 4 years, and they're loved wherever you go. Even now, when I travel, I bump into people, City supporters, wherever you are in the world. It's quite amazing.
Fantastic. And as well, with the tour, we'll be going around the world, so make sure you keep your eye out for where the trophy will turn up. It might be turning up to a place near you, so make sure you get down and go get your snaps, and you'll meet some City legends as well. Right, let's head back to Stamford Bridge, because FG is now with Tubes, of course, of Soccer AM. He now spends his time playing golf with Mr. Jimmy Bullard. Let's see what he thinks of today's game.
Yes, thank you very much. Welcome back to Stamford Bridge. As you can see, I am in the presence of greatness here. Media personality, now full-time golfer, Chelsea fan, Tubes.
Absolutely. How are you, mate?
I'm very well, mate. How are you? Great to have you here. Thank you for joining us on Matchday Live. We've just seen the Chelsea team.
Yes.
How do you feel looking at that?
It's quite a strong 11. On the way up to Chelsea today, I had absolutely no idea what it was going to be, but I quite like he's got Nkunku and Jackson, so it looks like he's going for it. So it's going to be interesting.
It is going to be interesting, indeed. It's a new era here at Chelsea, a new manager, Enzo, who, of course, City fans will know really well because he works at City as well.
Yeah.
What are you expecting from his tenure here, and do you expect the team to kick on from last season?
I want to see from Enzo, I want to see him give him time. Like, we're talking about Chelsea, long-term projects. We're supposed to do that with Pochettino. He's gone after a season. So I just want a manager to stay and put, you know, his mark on it, make his mark on it, you know, his philosophy, his, you know, the way he thinks about his football. Because I've heard such great things. Pep yesterday he was saying, like, give him time, give him time. If Pep's saying that, just do it, Chelsea, yeah? Just do it.
Just listen to Pep.
Please, Chelsea, listen.
It's always a smart move to listen to Pep, for sure.
Yeah.
I want to talk about your side. You said we want to give him time. It seems like you're building a squad for the future. 8 players under the age of 23. I mean, you look a little bit worried about that today. Is that a positive thing, would you say?
Well, you say we're building a squad. We've got one hell of a squad, haven't we? We've got about 78 players. So we need to cut back on that. I don't think you can have a first team squad of 45 players. So it's exciting. It is exciting. And if they get to know the manager and the way he likes to play football, we should be good. But I still think we need a centre forward.
That was my next question.
Yeah,
I mean, you've got a big squad, of course, but it seems like you're trying to get rid of some players to bring some in.
Yeah.
If I had to ask you for one striker to bring in that's realistic for Chelsea at this moment, who would it be?
Do you know what I'd love to see at Chelsea? Ivan Toney. They're talking about Osimhen. Obviously, I'd love him as well. There's someone of that mould who's going to put the ball in the back of the net. I really want to see a player of that calibre like that up front.
Let's talk then, away from Chelsea, away from football. You've been doing a lot of stuff since you've finished on our Saturday morning screens.
Yeah.
Golf life. How's that going for you?
It's going good, mate. I love it. Me and my brother started the channel 5 years ago. and then we got Jimmy Bullard on board 18 months ago. It's basically like a podcast on a golf course, and I'm not the greatest of golfers, neither is my brother, but we are trying to get better. But we have loads of footballers on, loads of film stars, and I love it, mate. I love it.
Who from the City squad would you potentially have on the channel?
Well, I've spoken to Carl Walker. He wants to come on. John Stones, I really want on, because I've heard you must have done stuff with him here, but mate, he's so funny, isn't he?
Yeah.
So I love John Stones on. Carl Walker and John Stones.
Well, listen, it's been an absolute pleasure having you here. Before we head back, we're not going to let you leave without a quick score prediction. What do you think the score's going to be today, Tubes?
You need to go back to the studio, do you?
Yeah,
okay.
We actually do, because Michael Brown's waiting in the wings and he's about to spray us with some water. So we'll head back to the studio.
No prediction.
It's been a pleasure, Tubes. Thank you, mate. What a smart man.
Very smart man indeed. Thanks so much to Tubes. Great to have him on. And Clive said everyone wants a number 9 at the moment.
That's what they're saying. Everybody wants a centre forward.
Quite interesting. I mean, we've got the Brentford Palace game going on. I'll bring you a score update of that just a second. But it's 2-1 at the moment to Brentford. They scored first, I think, equalised, and they've now gone back in front. But Ivan Toney has been left out of that squad, and Frank has said there is some interest around him. So that could be if he did go to Chelsea, I think that would be a great signing.
Yeah, and that's very honest from the manager, saying that one of his players has been left out because of, obviously, the transfer speculation. Ivan Toney is an outstanding centre-forward, there's no doubt about that. Has scored goals in the Premier League, has forced his way into the England squad, and I'm sure there's a lot of interested parties.
Indeed. Well, listen, if you had him in your fantasy football, you'd have been a bit gutted, wouldn't you? Because he hasn't started. Thankfully, I didn't have him in my team, but my 3 midfielders that have played, I've got 3 points between them, so not the start I wanted. But it's a long season, and we'd love for you to get involved with us. You'll see on our screen there's a little code at the bottom. That is how you can get involved with our league. We have some of our guests in there. I'm in there with Nat and FG as well. So if you're doing fantasy football, please do come get involved as well. I have got that man in, Solanke. He's my little secret wild card there on the Monday. Little brace from him will be lovely. Haaland hat-trick today, brace from Solanke tomorrow. Top of the league, mate. That's what we're going for. I wanted to pick your brains, gents, looking at this City squad, of whether we're looking at a title defence or are we in a rebuilding phase. Rich, I mean, I was kind of spoke to you about it before. You're very much seeing this as a title defence for City.
I think so, yeah. I think the experience that they've garnered over the last few years suggests that that's what they're going for. I think if they brought in a lot of players, you might start to think, have other ideas, but the squad they've got is really settled, really experienced. Everyone knows their jobs. Everyone knows, I suppose most importantly, they know what Pep wants. I think when he signs players, it generally takes them a little bit of time to settle into the rhythm of things, and they've got everyone there. And I can't see anything other than them coming into this season going, right, we're going to win the league and that's all we want. There's no excuses about rebuilds or reshaping the team. It's just about going and doing what we've been doing for 4 or 5 years now and go and win it again. So the squad is so packed with talent and so deep that they can do it. They can afford to do a defence of the league title. They can afford to go full tilt to the Champions League, have a go at the 2 cup competitions, and even finish up with the World Cup at the end of the season.
Yeah, that would be it. All the trophies indeed, which we have done before, by the way. And that's, I guess, it as well, because it's fine-tuning what we have, and I guess it's because of the foundations that have been built, as Richard said there. Then when we're actually bringing through youngsters, there's just a seamless fit, and it doesn't seem like a rebuild because they're only adding or enhancing to what's already there, Clive.
Yeah, I'm sure that Pep's one that demands the best of his players year in, year out. The expectation is high, is to win it again, and that's exactly how the young players coming through have that mentality. They know that that's what they're striving for. The senior players know and have done it before. They know how to do it. They know what it takes to do that as well. So I think the quality and depth in the squad, it just demands that. That's what you're expected to do.
Yes.
And you can't drop those standards. You can't let those levels fall, because if they do fall, you don't play or you leave the club.
That's it, and it was quite interesting. I was reading an interview that was speaking about Enzo's time when he was managing one of our academy sides, and said that the side that he built, it won the Premier League too, but it instilled that in the players of what the first team has. And is that why now when you see McAtee, O'Reilly, or you see Rico Lewis or Oscar Bob, that they are they're already feeling like City players because of the groundwork that's being done in the underage groups. And Richard, you'll know obviously because you've been coaching there as well.
Yeah, and they don't need to sign players because there is so many good players and talented players in the academy. The likes of McAtee's obviously been out for a couple of years, playing first-team football in the Premier League and standing out, and other clubs are trying to sign him. He's already here, so when you can just fit them in, they know what Pep wants, they know what the club expects from them. The expectations is that they win stuff, and because of the grounding they've had in the academy, they've won trophies in the academy, they understand what the City way is. They just fit in seamlessly. And if you go and bring another player in from outside and it takes a year to settle, and hopefully they do, maybe they won't, it just becomes... The academy is reliable because it's just produced and produced and produced, and it's always... You look at Chelsea, you were saying earlier, they've got 7 of the academy players, so everyone knows that it works there. So if we can pick the finest players out of that, well, then it adds to the whole club, having those local players in it.
And I do think that's why the younger players are so attractive to other clubs as well, because other clubs are wanting their players to buy into that. They want to bring players in from City who have that mentality, who have that thought that it is about winning, it is about being successful, and certainly that's why they're so attractive to so many other Premier League clubs, or clubs throughout the world, not just Premier League clubs.
Absolutely, and as we see as well, we've got them all over as well. We've got such a brilliant turnover rate. And Richard, I mean, you're there, part of it. You were part of the under-16 set-up last season. Started with the under-18s as well. New coach there as well, so, and had a first game against Leeds. How's the start of the season been?
It was good. We've had a long pre-season, it feels like, and you're always waiting for that first match of the season. Yesterday we had a tough game away at Leeds. We only had 2 pre-season friendlies, so it was almost like an extension of that yesterday, where all the players got on the pitch and had some minutes, and it was, like I say, it was a really tough game. We ended up drawing 0-0. Both sides had good chances, but it was a really enjoyable experience.
I believe as well it was a star performance for our keeper in the game as well. I believe he had a brilliant game.
Yeah, he's a fantastic goalkeeper. The two of them really push each other, Ollie and Max. So it's really good, and he's just one of those keepers that he makes saves at important times. His ability with his feet is really good. So yesterday we needed to call upon him a few times, and he done the business. And
we have a new coach, head coach, obviously the under-18s, Ollie Rees. What do we make of him, and how's he settling in, Richard?
He's great. He's obviously a big City and Pep fan. He's been very successful in underage football in Germany, and he's come over here to try and add what he can to Man City, and he works really hard. He's got a really enthusiastic way of coaching, and I think he'll be really successful because he wants to learn, he wants to help players, and yeah, yesterday was the first game of a long season, so I'm sure he'll really enjoy his time here.
Lovely stuff. Well, listen, we wish all the best of luck to all our age groups in the City Academy, and of course we'll be following them, keeping you updated as well, and we do get to bring you some EDS games as well later on in the season. Right, let's get some Premier League predictions then from none other than Andy Morrison and Sean Gota.
Who will be the Premier League's top scorer this season?
Top scorer, Erling Haaland.
Erling Haaland.
Which player will finish the season with the most assists?
Most assists?
Oh, that's a tough one. Fernandes.
That's a good question. I will KDB.
Which player will make the most passes, and how many will it be?
I can't remember the stats, but I'm going to go Rodri.
Diaz. I would go with 1,240.
Who will finish in the top 4?
Manchester City, Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea.
Man City, Arsenal, Liverpool, Chelsea.
Which goalkeeper will finish with the most clean sheets?
Oh, that's a really good one.
City, Addison, or Ortega.
Whoever can go for Arsenal. I'm not sure which one they'll choose this year, but I think they'll have the most clean sheets.
How many points will secure the Premier League title this season?
93.
88.
And how many points will be needed to stay up this season?
38. 34.
Which team will win the most games in a row, and how many will that be?
13. City.
Manchester City. 11.
And finally, who will be City's standout player of the season?
I would go for Erling Haaland again. It's goals. Because it's goals.
Haaland.
Andy Morris and Sean Goater, thank you so much. I've never seen Sean look more concentrated before. I never get that concentration in the studio. If you've just tuned in, welcome to Matchday Live. We're building up to our first Premier League game of the season. We're taking on Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. Thank you for joining us. We were just looking through some questions there all around the Premier League this season. So I'm going to put some to our guests now. I'll begin with, I'm guessing an easy one, the Premier League top scorer this year. Clive?
Erling Haaland.
Yeah, Haaland as well.
Has to be the big man,
be,
doesn't it? It can't be anyone else, we don't think. I also think Erling Haaland as well. Can't look past the big man up front. This is an interesting one. Who's going to finish in the top 4?
Shall I go first?
Yeah, go on, Clive.
Yeah. City, Arsenal, Liverpool, Spurs.
Spurs. OK, nice. Richard?
City, Arsenal, Liverpool and Villa.
I love that. Nice. We've just had as well, Kimbers, who's in my ear, says agrees with Villa as well. Yeah. I do think they could have a really strong, brilliant season for them last season, and also made some shrewd bits of business as well.
Really good business in the summer. I think they've strengthened their squad. I was listening to an interview with Moshi, who's their sporting director, and how he wants to build the squad and stuff like that. And it was really interesting. And I think Unai Emery's been brilliant since he's come back into the Premier League. So yeah, I fancy them to go strong again.
Just have the one thing to contend with: Champions League football and Premier League football. So it will be a really big test on their squad, and we've seen that with a number of teams. Newcastle, obviously, last season. So it's not always easy, having had a really successful season, which they did last season, to repeat it the second season.
Love it as well. Manchester United, nowhere to be seen in anyone's predictions. OK, keeper with the most clean sheets. Richard?
Yeah, I think the lads were right. I think it'll be David Raya at Arsenal. They've got a strong defensive unit. They don't concede many from set pieces, so I think that'll take effect, and probably him.
Yeah,
I have to agree. Best defensive record last season, Arsenal, and David Raya now #1.
Yeah,
I think that you know, if you have a better defensive record than Arsenal come the end of the season, you'd have had a good season.
Absolutely. I think when they kicked off with a clean sheet as well yesterday, I did have Saliba in my fantasy football, so I got the 6 points there. 2-0 win for Arsenal yesterday. And the final one I wanted to ask you both, Clive, I'll begin with you. Who will be City's standout player of the season?
I think there's so many possibilities, but I think the new addition, Savinho, will be one that you can tell by the supporters, everybody's looking forward to seeing him play. I think he's a real talent, and you know, the more games he plays, I think we're going to see an outstanding talent develop.
Lovely, I love that, Clive. Richard?
I think there's, like Clive says, there's loads of them, and I think you look at Foden and Haaland in terms of goals and assists, but the most effective one is always Rodri.
Yeah.
I think if he stays fit again all season, he's going to be the one that everyone looks at the end and goes, right, he's the one that we could throw a hat on for the whole season.
I'm also, for me, I really think Guardiola. I don't know, I'm excited to see how he kicks on. I think we really saw him, he kind of settled in to the team in the last few months of the season, and we saw his ability, obviously, in the World Cup, and obviously when he was at RB Leipzig. And I don't know, I just feel that maybe this could be a season where he really kicks on. What did you make of Guardiola's first season?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It took a little time to adjust to the Premier League. It always does. But playing in that left-back position, you saw him get forward. He scored important goals. And I think, again, defensively, it's going to be very, very important that he has a good season. And I think he's going to be one to watch for sure.
Absolutely. Thank you, Clive. Right. Well, we were asking some Manchester City fans to cast their mind back and try and remember some 10 out of 10 standout City performances from players across the years. So let's see who they threw into the mix.
So we've seen a lot of 10 out of 10 performances from City players. Which is your 10 out of 10 performance?
For me, what I remember is first league win, Yaya Toure, 2 goals away at Newcastle, can't beat it, set us on our way for QPR.
For me, probably Bernardo Silva against Liverpool, 18-19, went over 10 kilometres, controlled the game, one of the best games of the Premier League ever. For me, yeah, Bernardo against Liverpool.
Kevin De Bruyne against Newcastle, because he was outstanding in midfield. His work rate gives 10 out of 10 any game. He's always consistent. Pass the ball, can win a game at any point.
Aguero in 18-19 versus Chelsea, where he missed a sitter and then scored a hat-trick.
Mine is Bernardo Silva against Liverpool in the 2018-19 season. I remember they were, I think, about 7 points ahead of us. We needed to win that game to kind of stay in the title race. And we won it 2-1. Sane scored the winner. And that put us in sort of 4 points away from them. And we went on to win the league. I think we won near enough every game after that. And I remember Bernardo Silva in that game covered every blade of grass and he was just perfect. And I don't, when you say a 10 out of 10 performance, that's what comes to mind.
Great answer, lovely to hear that. I might open that up to our guests as well. Any standout 10 out of 10 performances that come to mind, Clive?
The one that strikes me last season, Erling Haaland at Luton in the Cup, I thought was the best centre-forward display that I'd seen for many, many years.
Yeah.
He was quite incredible. Not only his goal scoring, which was superb, but the way that he played the centre-half, his physicality, his timing of runs, and then his finishing was 10 out of 10.
Yeah, it really, do you know, I was actually at that game as well and seen it live. Also, I remember him, he popped up in every position, I feel like. I remember at one point he'd done the run back to the left-back position to win the ball back, which you probably wouldn't really associate with Haaland, but he had everything in that game, didn't he?
Yeah, I think he showed everything that was perfect. If you're a young centre-forward, you need to look at that game because he was just about perfect.
The other one I remember as well, I don't remember when Aguero scored 5 goals against Newcastle. That was also another 10 out of 10 performance as well. I mean, the defenders wouldn't have been happy with that day.
Not at all.
Listen, we asked you there before about who we think are going to be in the top 4, and we know how competitive this league is. I mean, the amount of goals that were scored last season, I feel was one of my favourite Premier League seasons I've seen, really. The rivalries are heating up. Obviously, we look to Arsenal, I guess, to be one of the main contenders, but Liverpool looked really strong as well. Obviously, we know Enzo Maresca's got a job with Chelsea, but, Ange has had a season now in the Premier League with Tottenham. Do you feel it's going to be an even tighter fraught Premier League season, particularly the top 4, top 6 even, Clive?
Yeah, I do. I think outside of whoever finishes in the top 4, there's going to be a ferocious competition. You look at Newcastle, you look at Crystal Palace, the way they finished last season.
Yeah.
I know they're being beaten in the opening game today, but there are so many teams that are just striving to get into European places, first and foremost, into the top 4 and Champions League places. And I think it gets even harder for those who are in those top 4 positions to establish themselves once again. I think that's why the manager, Pep Guardiola, is saying we need to finish in the top 4 for Champions League football come next season, and that really has to be the benchmark for any team. You're striving to get into that top 4, but there's just fierce competition below with at least 6 teams.
Agreed, and I can't remember, there was someone saying last season, it's now, we look at the top 4, but it's almost like now you just look at the top 8 or top 10. I even think of sides like Brighton as well. It just feels the level of competition has gone up again throughout all the lower teams as well, not just those top 4, top 6, Richard.
Yeah, and that's why it's the best league in the world. It's so exciting because of the competition, and I think it's interesting this year with City, with Arsenal, with Liverpool, that there's not been loads of changes. Obviously, Liverpool have had a big change with the manager, but in terms of the squads, they've all stayed pretty similar because they understand what their manager wants. They understand the demands of the league, and it's not easy to find players that are better than they've already got. And they've been, I suppose they've put a lot of trust and faith in the players that are already there, and they know they can do it. It's just a challenge: can they do it again? And for City, can they do it for a 5th time?
Absolutely,
that's the difficulty for them.
It is indeed. I mean, and Liverpool as well. They got off to winning ways as well yesterday against Ipswich, who did look good though in that first half. We'll be speaking about them at full time though, because they're our next game. Right now, we're focusing on Chelsea. Now we're going to bring a new game to Matchday Live this season, where we are going to be asking our guests to try and guess the amount of possession City will have in the game. And then the closer you are, so if we have 65% possession and Richard guessed 60, that would be 5 points. And the person who has the lowest number of points at the end of the season, who got closest to the correct possession, will be top of the league. So basically, you need to be on Matchday Live loads, first and foremost. Then you need to guess right. So if we're going to begin with today's game, Chelsea, it's quite an interesting one because it's away from home, but Chelsea love possession as well. So if you were to earmark a number, Richard, what do you think it might be for City's possession this game?
It is really tough, like you
Tricky,
say, because both sides want the ball. Both sides will try and press to win the ball back as well. So it's a tough one. And I think if City had 60, they'd be quite happy today. So I'll go there.
You're going to go 60.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Clive.
Just lower.
Yeah.
Because I was in that ballpark area, 58% possession. I think City will dominate the game with that. Dominate the game enough with that. 58%.
Now, I was thinking 58 as well. Maybe I'll throw 55 in. Then we'll come with
59 in between.
yeah, it'd be really annoying. Remember as well, you can let us know your guess as well if you're on social media or anything. Get your guess in as well, so you can play along. Right, let's go back. I'm really enjoying this. I mean, it's very brave, isn't it, Richard? We were saying catching up with City fans in a pub before the game, but we're enjoying it. So let's head back to FG now, who is with some of those fans.
So Erling Haaland makes 100 appearances for Man City today. What is a moment of his you remember?
Honestly, there's too many to remember. He's got about 5,000 goals for City. I remember that hat-trick against Man United. I remember that brace against Man United. He seems to dunk on them every time we play them, but today we played Chelsea. He scored with a little bit of a, I don't want to say a rude part of his body last year away at Chelsea, but hopefully he scores with any part of his body today. And I think Haaland maybe gets 30 plus this season. I'm going to say 40 in the Prem. He's a very memorable character, and I think he gets a lot of goals this season.
He's the best striker in the world, I think. And he will score today. 3-1, the match will be.
He's fantastic, isn't he? He's a man.
The first moment I remember is the first game of the season that he played for us against West Ham. You know, from the second he walked onto that pitch, he bossed it every minute. That penalty he scored, and then followed by the lovely through ball by Kevin De Bruyne, and he slotted it bottom corner. It was magnificent watching it from the away stand.
We could probably spend a whole Matchday live show just working through the 90 goals that he scored in 99 appearances. Today marks Haaland's 100th appearance in a City shirt. He's had 9 hat-tricks so far. It'd be nice if on the 100th, maybe he gets his 10th. And he's my fantasy captain, so if you would, please, Erling. We were talking about Haaland there, but Clive Allen, we'd love just to focus on you for a little moment, because, of course, you enjoyed a brilliant spell at City, 3 seasons. I guess fond memories of your time here at Manchester City.
Yeah, I had really fond memories. I actually came here as a 14-year-old schoolboy.
No way.
Nearly signed as a schoolboy. But ended up staying in London. But obviously, towards the end of my career, had the opportunity to come to City, which I couldn't pass up. I'd been playing in France. I was at Bordeaux in France, and had the chance to come back to play in England. And I didn't hesitate when obviously City were the team that came and bought me from Bordeaux.
We always ask this question because, I mean, it is such a special feeling that any players that played there talk about, but playing at Main Road, and I know City fans that were able to go there and experience it. It was such a special place. Fun, I guess, you know, the feelings, does that bring up as well for you when you played there?
Absolutely. I always remember the fantastic support. That was the one thing, not only at Main Road, but when we travelled as well. That was always something that was very special. The Manchester City support that travelled everywhere, the great atmosphere that they created at Main Road as well. A wonderful stadium to play football in, and you know, thoroughly enjoyed every minute of it. I really did.
You scored 21 goals for City. Is there any standout goals for you? Is there one that pops into your head above the others at all, or are they all memorable?
I always loved scoring goals. All goals are good goals.
Yeah.
Special goals, I think. 2 goals at Notts County in the Cup were very, very special. I'd come off the bench. I'd been out for a few weeks injured, and I got the chance to come on, score a right foot volley and then a penalty. And it was the only time I ever climbed the fence behind the goal to support,
wow.
to celebrate with the supporters. I'll never forget that day.
Just on penalties, what was your approach? Did you know always where you were going to go? Was it in the moment you decided? What was your approach?
It was very much in the moment that I was fixed on a particular side, and I was determined to put it obviously into the corner. Didn't change your mind. I was always taught, just don't change your mind. Be positive about taking it, and as long as you struck it well enough, hopefully it went in the back,
of the net.
Yeah.
Also played alongside players, you know, like Paul Lake, Keith Curl, many more. Was there any? They're all great players, but any standouts for you really enjoyed playing with?
I really enjoyed playing with Niall Quinn. Obviously, as a striker, Niall, big centre forward. He made a number of goals for me. David White on the right was obviously a fantastic winger. Provided great crosses. There was some special players at that time. I have to say that Paul Lake was an amazing talent. It was really unfortunate. I played in the game where he injured his knee and never really got back to the same player that his young potential had. He really was an outstanding talent and a great guy as well.
Yeah, everyone says that as well as a man. He's a brilliant man. Well, listen, Clive, for the 3 seasons you hear from City fans, thank you. And again, it's great to have you on Matchday Live as well.
Thank you.
If you've just joined us, we have got, it's 15 minutes till kick-off at Stamford Bridge. It's Manchester City's first game of the Premier League season. If you've just tuned in, welcome. I'm Kel Spellman, Clive Allen with me, Richard Dunn, and our starting 11 is on the bottom of your screen. I'll run you through it. We have Ederson in goal, Rico Lewis at right back, a centre defensive partnership of Manuel Akanji and Ruben Diaz, and Josko Gvardiol completes the back four as we move into the middle of the field. Kovacic is in the holding role, no Rodri today, as he's not even had one training session since coming back. Kevin De Bruyne captains the side. We believe as well it'll be Bernardo Silva in the middle with him, and then a forward 3 of Doku, Savinho, who's making his Premier League debut in a City shirt, and making his 100th appearance, Erling Haaland. Looking at some final thoughts then, Clive, how can you see this game being played out today?
Well, I think there's no doubt City want to contain Chelsea, dominate the ball, a lot of possession. Whether it might be slightly different in terms of feeding the pace on the flanks that City have today, or even going behind the Chelsea defence if they hold a slightly higher line. So I think the way the game unfolds in the early stages is going to be very interesting.
It's going to be really telling. Let's actually get some final thoughts as well from Stamford Bridge. Let's head back to FG, who's with Michael Brown.
Yes, thank you very much. Welcome back to Stamford Bridge. As you see our players behind us going through their final preparations in preparation for the new Premier League season. Brownie, how are we feeling?
I'm feeling good. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. Supporters are all here. Players right behind. These moments now. Just that little detail. Just getting ready for such a big season. I mean, these players are used to big games, aren't they? But this is big. First game of the season coming to Chelsea. Looking forward to it. Uncertainty around Chelsea. It's how do we react? How do we set the tone? I think it's important that that front 3, the support of Kevin De Bruyne and Bernardo Silva, go and press really, really quickly, press high, because they're a little bit fragile at the moment.
And you can probably hear the City fans behind us making all the noise in preparation. They've won 4 titles in a row, this team. They're an incredible team. They're history makers. Going into the next season, 5 sounds a lot more better, and there's no lack of motivation with the players behind us, is there?
Do you know what? We're not even being greedy. It's a reality that it's on for this team, this group of players, that we can go and do 5 in a row, and that would be unbelievable. We've already seen unbelievable, we've already seen sensational. But look at the hunger, the desire. There's some really top players here who demand it from each other.
2 managers who like possession-based football, Enzo and Pep. The players are right behind us, by the way. Enzo and Pep, how do you see the game going? I mean, they're both going to stick to their beliefs, of course. This team is, of course, a lot more well-drilled in that. A big test for Enzo's side.
I think they understand the role already. I think they've got a wonderful coach and someone who wants to develop, someone who wants to make the team better, but they haven't got to grips of how they're going to go and do that. And that's where City will capitalise. Whether they make a back 3 or into a back 4, it'll be similar to Manchester City, that's for certain. They will try and copy that trend, but you know full well that the manager knows his weakness and will try and really push on, put pressure on and try and silence this crowd.
Now, Pep, of course, spoke a lot in a press conference about how we didn't beat Chelsea last season. Will that be playing on the mind of some of the players who are in this squad as well, knowing how difficult it is? It was a time, the game was unbelievable here at Stamford Bridge from a neutral point of view. Last year, it was incredible. We'd much rather a more convincing City win, but does that play on the minds of the players?
Do you know what, we were stood right here, weren't we, waiting for that celebration, that reaction, till that late goal went in. It would have been sensational. The players were a little bit subdued, and I understand that because they didn't win the game, but they entertained us. They gave us an unbelievable game of football, both sets of players, but I don't think psychologically the players will be looking at that. They'll just think it's another football match. It's a game where we've seen them pre-season, we've had a little look at them. this team will be confident to go on and win.
Well, you always make us feel very, very confident, Brownie. Thank you so much. Listen, let's head back to the studio. We'll be back with you at full time. Come on, City.
Thanks, FG. Thanks, Michael Brown. You can also get Michael Brown on the commentary today. You can get that on the Manchester City app. Of course, he will be joined by the ever-present Alistair Mann, so make sure you get your ears around that. Not before, though, we wrap up here in the studio. Richard, the game here last season, 4-4. Do you think we could see something similar? I mean, it was 4-2 in the pre-season as well. Could you see it being a game of goals or maybe not so much this time?
I don't think we'll get as many as we did last season in the 4-4. It's just quite a strange one because on one side you're looking at Chelsea and going, there must be nerves amongst the whole group there, and if City can sort of capitalise on that and go, right, these are nervous, the crowd are a little bit nervous, if we have a go early, we could finish them off really early. But on the other hand, City sort of eased their way into seasons over the last few years. They've not been back doing pre-season as long as a lot of the other teams, and I think it might be a slower possession-based game by City. Take their time and build up into the match and hopefully get stronger as it goes on. But it's really interesting to see how they do approach it, whether they just go full guns blazing straight from the start or they try and ease into it.
It's interesting as well, I forgot to pick up on it, but FG spoke to Tubes earlier on in the show and I think said there was about 6 or 7 under 23s. Which obviously, you know, is great to think of the longevity there. But as far as that experience in a big game on the opening day of the Premier League, you can imagine there are going to be nerves there. And maybe there is a little bit of that inexperience, possibly, Clive.
Absolutely. There's always nerves. I think if Richard and I were playing now, we'd have nerves at the start of the season. You always do. You want to get off to a good start, a solid performance, one in which, you know, you build confidence. This is a team that is full of confidence. This is a squad of players that must have confidence in one another. And certainly I think, you know, that experience that they've gained, they've built up, the senior players will help those younger players. But those younger players can come into a team with no fear at all. I think that is always it's a great place to start for any young player, to be able to show your ability, and you have to have exceptional ability to get anywhere near a City squad, let alone the first team. So I think that you know, they'll be relishing the chance, I'm sure, and I expect them, if they start, I think they'll start quickly, they start fast, with confidence. It might well be that Chelsea being a little bit vulnerable right at the start of the season rather than City.
We did say, though, as well, Ian, Mark, that they have got threats. Chelsea, you know, I guess the key ones we need to be keeping an eye on, and Kunku and none other than Cole Palmer as well. They can hurt City if they get the opportunity, can't they?
Yeah, definitely. They've got the quality to open City up. I think did they play in the semi-final of the FA Cup as well last year when they created quite a few opportunities, and on that day Jackson missed them.
Yes.
But they showed that they could open City up. They could show they could cause problems, and they have. Wherever we think about Chelsea, they've got some real quality players in that group, and if they do click, they're going to be a real threat for everybody. But it's a warning to City. But City are prepared for everything. They're always prepared for whatever they face, and I think City's defence is really strong. I think from Chelsea's point of view, they're going out today and they're going to try stuff they've not tried before, because they're all still learning. It may work, it may not work. So you could get a complete hit and miss performance from Chelsea, which could be brilliant or not. We don't really know. But with City, you know what you're going to get. You're going to get consistency. You're going to get, we spoke about earlier, just doing the simple things all the time, doing them right, doing them constantly. And yeah, you would hope over 90 minutes that City would do more things right than what Chelsea will.
And what they've done over the years is they've done that and they've been successful with that. So, you know, the manager's just reinforcing that time and time again. If you do the right things, you get the right results. And that is something that's instilled in this squad of players.
Absolutely. And speaking of results, could I get a quick prediction then from you gents? Richard?
It's really, really hard game.
Tough one, this is very tough one.
It's not going to be 0-0.
No. But I think I'm going to go the other way. I think I'm going to go for 3-0 for City.
Nice, love that. OK, and Clive?
I think it might be a little bit closer. I'm going to go 2-1 City.
2-1 City, lovely stuff. Well, what an absolute show to get the Premier League season under the way. Thank you to my guests, of course. Thank you to you all for joining us and watching wherever you are around the world. It is now time for me to pass over the baton to Alistair Mann. He's got your commentary on the Manchester City app. But if you're not already excited, like I am, this will definitely get you excited because the Premier League is back. How great is it that I get to say that? I'll see you at half-time. Last thing for me to say, come on, City.
Falling a row in the league is maybe even better than anything else.
Oh, it's a steal here for Son, and
Son Heung-min is through. That will take us smothers.
That moment, the title's gone from Arsenal to Manchester City.
Erling Haaland scores!
Manchester City have the chance to make history as the first side ever to win 4 Premier League titles.
Foden on the edge of the area, hits a shot. City's Premier League Player of the Season has just rifled City in front. But this is another historic moment in this wonderful team's recent history.
For us to go and do 4 in a row off the back of a treble was a great achievement.
The wait is now over from the end of last season to the very start of this.
In the Premier League, you know, each and every game is a dogfight.
They're going to be the team to beat, but Arsenal, I think, will be closest.
The adrenaline be ready to compete.
Bernardo Silva with a little back heel.
That going into this Premier League season, that if anyone's going to surpass them, 90 is the bare minimum.
Haaland hits the shot. Oh, I say, Erling Haaland. De Bruyne now in the penalty area, hits the shot in the net.
That will be the motivation going forward. Nobody's done 5 in a row, so why not?
What a goal! Absolutely stunning! Phil Foden, you absolute beauty!
4 in a row, that was unprecedented. Do you think you can go for the 5th?
Why not? Why not?
Is saying 5 Premier Leagues in a row enough motivation to keep going at this level?
Everyone won the crown that we have for 4 years.
Why can't we go and do 5 in a row? You know, why can't we go and do something that I don't think will probably be ever done again?